Welcome to the Philippine Science Heritage Center's new Salinlahi Science Center, honoring our top Filipino scientists and their game-changing contributions to the world of science. Know more about all of them and let the Salinlahi Science Center be your gateway into their minds. Salinlahi.
Before we begin, please be reminded of our house rules. Proper decorum is expected among all participants. Any act of disrespect and rudeness shall not be tolerated throughout the duration of the webinar. Kindly key in your questions for the panelists in the Q&A. These will be answered during the open forum.
Welcome to the Philippine Science Heritage Center's new Salinlahi Science Center, honoring our top Filipino scientists and their game-changing contributions to the world of science. Know more about all of them and let the Salinlahi Science Center be your gateway into their minds. Salinlahi.
Before we begin, please be reminded of our house rules. Proper decorum is expected among all participants. Any act of disrespect and rudeness shall not be tolerated throughout the duration of the webinar. Kindly key in your questions for the panelists in the Q&A. These will be answered during the open forum.
Welcome to the Philippine Science Heritage Center's new Salinlahi Science Center, honoring our top Filipino scientists and their game-changing contributions to the world of science. Know more about all of them and let the Salinlahi Science Center be your gateway into their minds. Salinlahi.
Before we begin, please be reminded of our house rules. Proper decorum is expected among all participants. Any act of disrespect and rudeness shall not be tolerated throughout the duration of the webinar. Kindly key in your questions for the panelists in the Q&A. These will be answered during the open forum.
Welcome to the Philippine Science Heritage Center's new Salinlahi Science Center, honoring our top Filipino scientists and their game-changing contributions to the world of science. Know more about all of them and let the Salinlahi Science Center be your gateway into their minds. Salinlahi.
Before we begin, please be reminded of our house rules. Proper decorum is expected among all participants. Any act of disrespect and rudeness shall not be tolerated throughout the duration of the webinar. Kindly key in your questions for the panelists in the Q&A. These will be answered during the open forum.
Welcome to the Philippine Science Heritage Center's new Salinlahi Science Center, honoring our top Filipino scientists and their game-changing contributions to the world of science. Know more about all of them and let the Salinlahi Science Center be your gateway into their minds. Salinlahi.
Before we begin, please be reminded of our house rules. Proper decorum is expected among all participants. Any act of disrespect and rudeness shall not be tolerated throughout the duration of the webinar. Kindly key in your questions for the panelists in the Q&A. These will be answered during the open forum.
Magandang umaga po sa lahat, to all the guests, participants, and to our distinguished speakers. Good morning po sa inyong lahat. I hope you are all staying safe. And of course, I am honored to welcome you to the launching of the Engineering, Science, and Technology Division, or ESTD, webinar series of the National Academy of Science and Technology Philippines, or NAST Philippines. Thank you for joining us today as we talk about digital transformation and digital ecosystems. I am Jel Miranda, your host for today's activity. Please let your friends know that you are attending this activity. Please use the official hashtag Pilipinas, and hashtag ElevateDX. And a few reminders for this activity. For those who joined in through Zoom, please key in your questions in the Q&A feature. Please do not forget to indicate to whom your question is addressed to. And for those who are streaming through Facebook Live, kindly key in your questions in the comment section. Your questions during the open forum. At this point, let us hear from Academician Rodora V. Azaza, President of NAST Philippines, to give us the opening message.
Maraming salamat, Jel. We're starting big. I would like to greet first our distinguished panelists, our participants from all over the country, and I think some other people are online from other countries. My dear friends in science, technology, and innovation, ladies and gentlemen, magandang umaga sa ating lahat at manigong bagong taon. On behalf of the National Academy of Science and Technology Philippines, or NASTPhil, I am pleased to welcome you all to the launching of this webinar series initiated by the Engineering, Science, and Technology Division. To formally launch the series, we will be talking about digital transformation and digital ecosystems. Technology has been a powerful force in pushing economic growth and improving the lives of people. We have seen the rapid development of digital technology in several fields, such as mobile communications, robotics, artificial intelligence, and many more. Through technology, we are experiencing changes in the way we live, work, interact, and do business. When the pandemic hit our country and the rest of the world, most of the businesses and services went online and digital, as what we are doing now. We witnessed the rise in the use of telemedicine, e-commerce, digital payments, and online education. As we enter this new normal, the use of digital technologies has become significant for every Filipino in dealing with the current crisis. I hope that through this webinar, we will be able to have an overview of what are the advantages and risks of digital transformation and its application in different areas. By the end of the webinar, I also hope we will be able to learn how digital transformation can help us recover from the present situation. Allow me to thank all of you for joining us in today's webinar. I am confident that you will find new ideas to engage in meaningful discussions on digital transformation. I wish you all a very successful webinar, and may we have a productive day ahead of us. Mabuhay at magandang umaga ulit sa ating lahat.
Thank you very much, Academician Azanza. And in the next hour, we will listen to interesting topics prepared by the members of the Engineering Sciences and of the Academy. We have 6 panelists today who will introduce us to the role of digital transformation and digital ecosystems, shelter and transportation, water, energy, manufacturing and industry, and of course, education. We have Academicians Torres, Academician Pacheco, Academician Tabios, Academician Pulapa, Academician Matias, and Academician Tan. I know this is a lot, but for today, we will only highlight the implications of digital transformation on those mentioned sectors. Sabi nga namin ay patikim lang po muna namin ito mga kaibigan dahil sa mga susunod na webinars kung saan mas mabibigyan po ng detalye ang lahat. Kaya yun po ang dapat ninyong abangan. Again, I am reminding everyone that the Q&A will be done after the presentation of our distinguished panelists. So, ano nga ba ang digital transformation? Digital ecosystem, madalas na po nating naririnig yan, pero sa pagkakataong ito, mas maliliwanagan pa tayo kung ano nga ba ang ibig sabihin ng mga terminologies na ito at bakit Elevate DX ang hashtag natin for today. Lahat po yan ay sasagutin ng ating unang speaker. Our first lecture and video is about the digital ecosystem by no other than the founder of Philippine Internet, Academician William T. Torres. Academician Torres is a distinguished School of Information Technology at Mapua University and is recognized for his significant pioneering contributions in computer science and information technology. Everyone, let us all hear from Academician Torres.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning and Happy New Year. I do not have a video to show you, but I will talk about digital ecosystems and digital transformation in the next few minutes. But before I start, let me hopefully shock you by sharing what I have stumbled upon just last night. The International Data Corporation had a study which says that investments or spending on digital transformation is expected to grow at 17% per year starting in 2019 up to 2023. And in 2023, that spending will be at the tune of $2.3 trillion. $2.3 trillion. And hear this, more than half of that spending will be on what is necessary to enable digital transformation. I just wondered if you can all hear me. Can somebody respond?
Yes, so very clearly.
Very clearly. Okay.
Torres, Alvin here.
Sir, you might want to open your video. We cannot see you.
Okay. Can you see me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me make a few statements before I show other details about these two important concepts. Digital transformation and digital ecosystems are two of the many emerging technologies which came from advances in information communication technologies on one hand, and the use of these technologies in just about everything we do in our life. So that is the importance of digital transformation. Now, together with digital ecosystems, they have evolved from what used to be called computerization, or more formally, digitization, And then next to that would be digitalization. The second one says it is the use of digital technologies in order to improve the way we do things in our society. I believe that we need to learn a lot more about digital transformation and digital ecosystems so that the insights and experience and expertise that we can derive from this will help us in formulating our digital strategies for our country so that we can move towards becoming a digital nation. And I also believe that we need to work together to make this happen. And I hope that today would be an auspicious beginning for that event. So let me now go to the first term, digital transformation. Just a few slides to tell you some detail, although I will just gloss over them, and perhaps in the series that we'll discuss in the future, we can understand it some more. Next slide, please. Previous slide, please. Okay. I have broken up this complex definition for us to easily understand the definition. But even if we read it, we may not really understand because it has other meanings attached to it. Digital transformation is a process where digital technologies create disruptions. Okay? Now, these disruptions trigger strategic responses from organizations that seek to alter their value creation paths. In short, they just want to improve their business processes and their management processes so that they will come up with better products and services. But at the same time that we're trying to do this, we have to manage the structural changes and organizational barriers that affect the positive or negative outcomes of this process. So I will summarize that later in maybe the third slide after this, but that is the formal definition, which is according to a study of hundreds of papers to come up with something that can be a model for trying to understand what digital transformation is. And let's take a look at the next slide, which shows that model. It may not be very clear to you, but it is consistent with the definition where on the left side, you're talking about the technologies, the digital technologies, and a continuing cycle of changes in the technology. So that's the left part. So that's digital technology in the left part. Now that is inputted into the right part, the right cluster of blocks. And this is where organizational leaders and operational leaders are really trying to change their organizations. But at the same time that they're trying to do that, because they have to do it when they use digital technologies, they have to manage that change because it has some regulatory and ethical consequences. So we have to combine the impact of technology with the impact of changes that will happen in our organizations for us to come up with a good strategy and a good implementation of the strategy. Next slide. Now this slide compares what we know as usual when we try to use digital technologies in our organizations. And that's the first or middle column. Organizational transformation transformed by use of digital technologies. Okay? On the right column, that is where we notice that this is something different. And I cannot explain all the items there, but it really is important to know the change that will happen when you move from just trying to transform your organization towards transforming your organization plus those around you, and in fact, perhaps the whole society. And that is illustrated by the second row. The target entity of the first column would be a single organization typically. And what gets improved are just the processes and maybe management of these processes in your organization, in one organization. But when you look at the digital transformation, things are different. You have to look beyond your organization, to look at the internet or the platforms that organizations use together. And in fact, you can also say that you need to look at the entire society. Okay, so the difference in the two is or has to be appreciated by all of us. That when we say digital transformation, it doesn't really mean only what happens in one organization or in one community. It is all over. Now, the other thing I want to illustrate is the experiential outcomes. Okay, on the first column, the outcomes are just improvements in certain processes. Okay, and that helps improve the organization. But in the right column, you are not just improving the processes, you are impacting everything. And that is the impact of what we now call digital transformations. So let's not make a mistake that we are already into digital transformation, especially when we look at organizations, communities, institutions. We have to witness some changes that might happen that are of the nature that are described in this comparative diagram. Next slide. Now here is where I say that to simplify our thinking right now for our discussion today, let's remind ourselves that digital transformation is a change strategy, a strategic change strategy for institutions, organizations, and communities that is expected to produce significant improvements in performance towards achieving goals. And we will not mention these things individually, but let's just call them, they are in fact enterprises, okay? Something that goes after complex goals, and they have to organize towards achieving those goals. The second bullet says, digital transformation makes use of digital technologies. Of course, but we do make use of digital technologies already. Now, how we combine the technologies that we learn from using them with the technologies that are coming very fast, changing very fast. You talk about AI, you talk about Internet of Things. These are current developments. How to combine them with what we're doing is a challenge for all of us. And that is what the third bullet says. We need to look at more than just the digital technologies. Okay, I'll turn my attention to digital ecosystems. Next slide. Again, the definition is perhaps very easy to understand, except that there are some words we need to explain a bit. The first part says an interdependent group of enterprises, people, and or things. Now that's the target, no? Enterprises, people, or things that share standardized digital platforms. That's something we have to learn some more of. And then the last part is really the more important part. What is important? Why we do the first part? It is for mutually beneficial purposes. If you are in business, maybe it's for commercial gain. If we are in science and technology development, then that's where we take up innovations. Now, if we are just in a community, perhaps anything that are of common interest can be addressed by using this interdependent group of companies, people, and things. Next slide. Now, this slide is really a historical description of what has happened in our use of technology. And I will not discuss this in detail, but this is a slide that was started around the 2007, so 13 years ago, 14 years ago. And at that time, we already have internet, and so we have email, we have web, we have e-commerce, and we have e-business. These are the things that are already beginning to permeate our society, and we are aware of them. It is in the second to the last and the last step that we need to do much more. And that is why I say we need to leapfrog to these last two steps. And the last step suggests that we need to take a look at digital ecosystems, which I have defined earlier. So there are many things that are happening, but it's difficult to describe them in a paragraph or on a slide because we really need to understand all the perspectives when we make use of these terms. And let me go to the last slide. Now, how can we make digital ecosystems? Very briefly, what you have on the top layer of this 4-layer model is where that happens. This diagram shows you many enterprises or many communities or many institutions or many organizations within institutions. That is what is being illustrated here. Now, if you leave them by themselves, they will do whatever they want to do with within their own organizations. And of course, they will access services one at a time perhaps, or they may have a plan for their own organization, but that's it. Kanya-kanya sila, no? At the bottom layer, this is where we get the very familiar telecommunications services from our companies like PLDT and Globe and many others. Network services ecosystem yun. It is in the middle that we probably are seeing some things that are happening in our country, but we really need to put more attention on the enabler of digital ecosystems. They have to be also digital ecosystems. So in short, what we're really saying is the digital ecosystems are a bridge between the network services. Internet is the main thing about this, but also organized in such a manner that it will make it easy for digital ecosystems of enterprises, which is the top layer of this diagram. So this is what I'd like to just start off, and I know that the other panelists will have to discuss other perspectives about these two terms that are beginning to really impact the way we do things in our own lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Academician Torres. I know that digital transformation can make a great impact in the society. But Dr. Torres, can I ask you one question? Can you please give us an idea of what's really or actually going on regarding here in our country and elsewhere around the world?
Okay. In our country, I can think of a few examples. For example, in banking, okay, or financial services, there is, there is a change that you all of us witness, di ba? We don't have to go to the bank anymore. We can do it online, di ba? And so that's a big change, and that is enabled by this digital transformation infrastructure. Now, what you don't see in a banking community or banking in the banking institution are what they do together so that these things can happen that we enjoy as end users or customers. So an example of what I can say is on an advanced stage in a relative way of speaking, relatively speaking. No? The other example, perhaps familiar to many of us in the urban centers, are Grab, no? Number one. Number two, what is going on in the retail of goods, di ba? It has changed the way we shop, the way we travel, and so on. What is behind that? It is an example of digital transformation. So what we do as a society, what we do as communities, have been changed because of the changes which can be labeled as digital transformation. Elsewhere around the world, there are so many things that are happening. For example, driverless cars. You've heard about that. So we as customers or as riders, we can enjoy by simply using our phone and the internet connection of our phone and the car, which is also a computer. And so the rider simply goes into the car and everything is taken care of. Will that happen in our country? I don't know. But that's happening all over the world. In a more significant way,
Yes.
things like IoT, artificial intelligence, machine learning, these are things being talked about, and these are very important components of what will happen in digital transformation. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much once again. A round of applause to Academician William. It's about the shelter and transportation by Academician Benito M. Pacheco. Academician Pacheco is a professor and the founding director of UP Institute of Civil Engineering. He played an important role in the formulation of legislation for a new Philippine Building Act and is recognized in the field of disaster risk reduction and management. All right, well, let us hear the presentation of Academician Pacheco.
or frame the proper questions. It's also just natural to revisit our terminologies. The words change as fast as or even faster than the technologies. We have good reason to distinguish automation from computerization. And as computers have turned digital, we have good reasons to distinguish digital transformation from other actions. And we have good reason to recognize digital ecosystems. An ecosystem is an interdependent group of enterprises, people, and/or things. Underlying all our technical discussions, there are, of course, social issues too. How about digital divide, the socioeconomic divide that affects people's access to digital technologies? For the shelter sector, we mean all aspects of building, house, or structure, from planning to financing to constructing to occupying to maintaining to dismantling. For the transportation sector, we mean all aspects of hub, network, and vehicle, from land to water to air. And for a digital ecosystem, we mean not only things such as buildings, roads, and vehicles, but also people and enterprises, from consumer user to enabler regulator to maker producer. A central question is, to what extent do these people, enterprises, and things involve digital technologies? And so, during the series of forums, we have the chance to discuss the various elements of digital ecosystems, as shown in this diagram. How do we, citizens of Philippine cities and towns, form digital ecosystems with our shelter and transportation? Such would be a natural progression in increasing opportunities and economic benefits, which requires a commensurate organizational change and sophistication. With our shelter and transportation systems in a city or town, how do we evolve an interdependent group of enterprises, people, and things that share standardized digital platforms for a mutually beneficial purpose, such as innovation, common interest, or commercial gain?
All right. So thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, Dr. Pacheco. Siguro sabi na natin, sobrang bilis na ng takbo ng technology, sir, di ba?
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you,
yung
Jel.
tungkol sa Grab. Pero siguro mas ma-elaborate natin, Dr. Pacheco. Talaga bang ang Grab Express is an example of digital ecosystem for transportation?
Thank you, Joe, for that question. And academician Bill Torres also mentioned Grab earlier. And I think you may have mentioned before, para mga Filipino applications. I think if we recall the diagram of different steps in the digital transformation, siguro yung Grab Express we can easily classify as an e-business model. And eventually, siguro matatransform yan to a full digital ecosystems pagka marami pang mga ibang stakeholders who are able to plug in or connect other applications to it. So yes, intelligent transport system or computerized or digital transportation, marami ng beginnings. Hindi pa siguro full-fledged na digital ecosystem, but we're going there, ika nga. Yeah. So we'll discuss more of examples.
So, dito sa ating bansa, nakikita niyo, sir? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think yung
So, dito sa bansa natin.
Malapit na siguro, and the need is felt by everyone. Kahit na anong sektor ng ating lipunan, nakita naman natin, may para or the like para sa tricycle, mayroong very sophisticated na mga car services. And before we know it, kabit-kabit na yung modes. Pwede na rin sa plane, saka sa airport transfer and all that. So kahit sa ibang sector or segments ng society, I suppose. So I think it's a glimpse of our future too.
All right. Once again, thank you so much, Academician Pacheco. And in the next few minutes, mas palalawigin pa po natin yung ating talakayan. Kaya doon sa ating mga guests or participants na kasama natin dito sa ating webinar, ay pwede kayong mag-key in ang inyong mga questions doon sa ating Q&A box dito sa Zoom and doon sa ating Facebook Live. Pwede po kayong mag-submit ng inyong comments or ng inyong questions. Once again, thank you so much, Academician Pacheco. Our next presentation is from Academician Guillermo Q. Tabios III, and it is about water. Academician Tabios is a professor emeritus at the Institute of Civil Engineering at UP Diliman. He is recognized in the field of civil engineering, specifically hydraulics engineering and water resources.
Hello, everyone. Let me just go quickly first to my presentation. So my talk is on digital ecosystem for water resource systems. Now, there was a report in 2019 from the United Nations Environment Assembly where they advocated the use of digital ecosystem for environmental systems. So they gave reasons why we need it. They said that data have tremendous potential to be used as a powerful resource for governments, stakeholders, academics, and so on to develop these policies, data streams, technological solutions, and technical expertise. And in particular, a digital ecosystem of data, algorithms, and insights is needed in order to provide actionable evidence and the state of the environment and interactions between the economy, society, and environment. So a digital ecosystem must be interoperable with, again, physical, social, and economic data. And with its algorithms and methodologies, they can provide real-time information and actionable knowledge and insights that can be easily understood by decision makers, stakeholders, and citizens. So it's very important to have, again, those three components: data, algorithms, and then insights. And of course, you have the infrastructure to support all of this digital ecosystem. Now, in water resources in particular, way back in 2004, Gyurga Kakos of Georgia Tech actually has already been advocating linking science, public policy, and management decisions through decision support systems for sustainable water resource development and management. So if you see look at the chart, the scientific disciplines includes, of course, your data, even indigenous knowledge, you have research-based data, and then to link this to the policy actors and management decisions, you need this decision support system, which are, again, models, algorithms, and I think this is really evolves around your digital ecosystem or your digitalization or digital transformation. Just quickly on the decision support system, again, you see here the data are in this measurement system, remotely sensed data or ground surveys, and then you have some data archiving through your information system, and then your algorithms and methodologies are in the model systems, and you have also analysis to come up with your insights, strategies, plans, which should be user-friendly, as we mentioned. They should be easily understood by your stakeholders, decision makers, and so on. So let me give you two examples on a digital ecosystem, a platform applied to water resource systems. So one of them is real-time flood forecasting and reservoir operations system where you have DCPs, data collection platforms like your rainfall from ground stations, maybe even remotely sensed data, send it to your reservoir control center. So you have then basin rainfall, which is spatially interpolated. Then you do your reservoir operations. You can calculate the given the inflows out, given the water elevations. Then you do your gate regulation schedule, and then you look at the downstream end and see what's the impact of that by looking at flood inundation levels, and especially maybe even flows and velocities. But these are results that then you can use for real-time flood warning as well as evacuation plans. The other example I just want to show you quickly is in Subic Bay, which is in which the hydrodynamic and water quality processes are affected by several factors, from watershed inflows, the pollution loadings, you have wind forcing, salinity effects, and then tidal forcing. Again, if you look at tidal forcing data, wind data, you then and then the pollution loads, you put that into your watershed model, to your ocean model or the bay model, and then water quality directed dispersion transport model. Then you come up with results, which we call insights or strategies or plans for your integrated coastal management, like how you reduce your pollution load through your biochemical oxygen demand, or maybe contingency measures should you have an oil spill. So finally, I'd like to end my slide by showing you this. If you don't have a digital ecosystem, so you'll still be, making these plans, these people bored, looking at the blackboard, oh, let's take a look at this, maybe that, and so on. But no data, no algorithms, methodologies to look at the impacts of this and that. In contrast to planning or management of water resource systems with digital ecosystems. So you have these stakeholders, they just sit back and then look at all these results of your digital ecosystem to make decisions. So that's my last slide. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tobias, for that beautiful presentation. Siyempre, di ba, sabi nga, Dr. Tobias, ito, one question lang. Di ba, siyempre, alam natin, ang bansa natin, humid, and then consider pa yung natin na archipelagic setting ng ating bansa. And also, nakakaranas pa tayo ng iba't ibang weather events or conditions due to typhoons, monsoons, and other watersheds and water resources systems over 50 separate islands. So my question is, how will digital ecosystems aid to ensure the sustainable water supply and development of the country?
Yeah, for a country like us, if you look at the weather systems, the archipelagic setting, so many islands, maybe 50 or more, as you mentioned, you really need to look at it like a very complex, large-scale, uncertain, unpredictable, dynamic system. So you cannot do that by just human intelligence thinking, bale, na you just kind of, by perception or by your perspective, ito yung gagawin and so on. You need like fast computing, pervasive computing, artificial intelligence maybe to the extent, with machine learning or all this evolutionary computing. Those are the buzzwords these days. And then you have big data to deal with, remotely sensed data. You're talking about time scales hourly, if you talk about flood, and then so much spatial variation, rainfall all over the country, being a humid tropic country. And then, of course, you have to think in terms of how you make decisions. You're going to look at watersheds being archipelagic, mountain here, in a matter of 10, 15 kilometers, ocean na agad. So you're talking about the sea or the coast. So you really have to think in terms of from cloud to coast kind of planning. not no longer just from upstream to downstream, upland to down to the lowland, but really from the clouds to the coast. So you really need a digital ecosystem level of analysis, level of planning, level of management, and on and on.
All right. So mahaba-habang usapan ito, Dr.
Yes.
Tobias. At alam ko maraming interesado dito sa topic na ito. Further on siguro sa ating next ay mas palalawigin din natin yung ating talakayan when it turns to the water naman. All right. Thank you so much, Academician Fabulous.
Have a nice morning.
Next up is Energy by Academician Alvin B. Culaba. Academician Alvin Culaba is a professor at the Gokongwei College of Engineering at De La Salle University. He is recognized for his significant contributions in the field of renewable energy and cleaner production and technology. Let us now hear Academician Culaba.
Energy is the lifeblood of the global economy. It is indispensable to national economic development. It drives, towards our global competitiveness across all sectors of the economy. And it also, reduces poverty and improve, the quality of life of the people. In the future, we see the energy outlook to be increasing primarily because of our population and because of industrial and infrastructure development. But we have to understand that to bring electricity to the consumers, it will involve three important sectors of the energy sector, the generation, transmission, and distribution. And energy has to be produced and used in ways that it would support human development as well as human well-being and ecological balance. It has to be available. It has to be accessible, especially in terms of the lower cost of electricity, as well as it has to be acceptable. The current, traditional power grid is really more centralized, and the power system is one way. Whereas we would like to see in the future, a more distributed and a two-way power flows, in a digital, utility. So digital technologies with a huge array of sensors available can help the energy sector in many ways, especially in promoting energy access, the use of renewables, and improve energy efficiency. And what drives actually, transforming the energy sector to digital energy ecosystem is really giving the consumer the power of choice, having all the, choice to a lower price cost as well as, the type of energy, that they want. And the data must be available from the generators, from the distribution, as well as the transmission, and also from the consumer side, which is basically, setting up a smart grid, network. So a smart grid is the integration of information and digital communication technologies that would enhance security, reliability, and efficiency of power system, from efficient transmissions to rapid restoration, to lower electricity rates, and of course, to increase intelligence of energy needs. The smart grid will bring many benefits to the evolving energy ecosystem. The technology-based innovation is arriving faster than we thought. Low-cost sensors, two-way communicating devices, and cloud computing together empower a home or establishment that are self-aware in terms of its ability to efficiently consume energy. So the need for digital value is greater now than their barriers in the past. Data analytics, process digitization, and automation would find value from digital transformation. The COVID-19 pandemic has opened eyes for digital transformation. Survival, needs getting to the next level on cost and adaptivity, and that requires digital. And shifting, from business as usual will thus lower barriers to adoption that usually hampers digital transformation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Culaba. And hi, sir. Dr. Culaba, as you have mentioned in your presentation, we are moving from traditional to a digital energy future. So, dito ba sa ating bansa, sir, meron na gumagamit talaga ng ganitong sistema or pwede kayong mag-mention ng company na ito na yung nagiging kalakaran?
Well, thank you, Jel. As I have mentioned earlier, napaka-complex yung energy sector, no?
Yeah.
Bringing electricity to consumers will involve those two important, sectors from the generators, the distribution, transmission company, and the distribution companies, no? So specifically to your question, yes, I have, anyway, it's already public knowledge, and it's already, Meralco has already deployed. There are already over 100,000 smart meters. And the smart meters, these are prepaid, services that allows, Meralco to monitor the energy or power consumption of households. And they provide the real time data. And these data are actually communicated even through handheld, devices, and allows the consumer to decide, which they are going to conserve, their consumption from. Is it putting off the aircon or just using, the electric fan? So that smart meters also give them the balance of their load so that they know how much, energy they have, left.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things that's already happening now in the energy sector. And we will see more of this, as I have already, pointed out in my presentation, that the ecosystem for the energy sector is just huge, and there are so many opportunities to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Academician Kulaba. And our next presenter is Academician Aura C. Matias. She will discuss about manufacturing and industry. Academician Matias is a professor at the Department of Industrial Engineering and Operations Research at UP Diliman and have served as Dean of College of Engineering at UP Diliman. She is well known in the field of industrial engineering, research, and education towards sustainable development and environmental management. Let us all hear from Academician Matias.
Hello to everyone. In the manufacturing industry sector, digital transformation is often heard of as Industry 4.0. Distinct from Industry 3.0, which involved the automation of single machines and processes, Industry 4.0 encompasses end-to-end digitization and data integration of the value chain. Let me share with you a few studies that have good insights of digital transformation in the manufacturing and industry sector. The Industry 4.0 Global Digital Operations Study in August of 2018 interviewed 1,155 manufacturing executives in 26 countries. Based on the study data, I'd like to take note of three interesting findings. First, they observed that Asia is leading the way to digitization because of its very young and fluent companies that offer new digital products and services, and that they also implement digital operations improvements on the shop floor. They also noted that digital champions distinguish themselves by integrating the four ecosystems of customer solutions, operations, technology, and people. And thirdly, people are at the center of digital transformation. In simple terms, digital transformation starts with what you offer your customers and how you offer it. It expands to its operations ecosystems, which encompasses the value chain, and it's the technology you use and the people who make it happen. A recent study last year found that 62% of manufacturers surveyed have moved forward with their smart manufacturing investments despite the COVID-19 pandemic, and showed that it has also even accelerated the pace of advanced technologies that can help COVID-19 challenges, such as cobots to maintain productivity, computer vision for virtual customer tours, augmented reality, virtual reality for training and equipment maintenance, and of course, wearables for worker safety. The world has gone digital and there's no going back. While this may all sound like great changes, it presents some unique challenges for businesses, and without a path forward, some companies may not make it through the next few years. Businesses are often slow to change, and many of the evolutions that come quickly through our digital world don't come easily or cheaply. Companies must deal with ever new waves of disruptive technologies that impact every aspect of their organization as well as their business ecosystems. Cloud computing, social media, augmented reality, Virtual reality, blockchain, AI, big data, and Internet of Things. All these and more have hit businesses over the past decade, and each of them requires a certain level of technical skill set to design and implement new solutions. The planning for digital transformation adoption goes beyond few months, as these projects involve big staffs for an unpredictable period. Therefore, costs and time must be well calculated in advance. To successfully overcome digitalization challenges, a good corporate organization must also be able to constantly develop and act flexibly. The role of digital technology in the overall value of creation of any business has become so prominent that we witness a radical reshaping of traditional industry boundaries, as virtually every business is becoming a technology company. No matter if it is food, travel, entertainment, construction, automotive, agriculture, or any other sector, they all are more and more dominated by the digital platform. Without any doubt, we have entered a new normal that we are defining as we go, and what is certain is that it will not be a return to the old normal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Academician Matias. Hi, ma'am. So, ang ganda ng presentation mo. Talagang sabi nga, this is the new normal, di ba?
There is really no going back to the old normal.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, kaya lang, ma'am, ito parang siguro sa pangkalahatan na rin din. Kapag naririnig kasi nila yung artificial intelligence, so nandiyan na yung mga robot, di ba? Siguro yung ilan nag-worry pa rin pagdating sa labor force eh. So, let's say 10 years from now, kamusta na ba yung industry natin, manufacturing industry? Baka daw mga robot na yung makikita nilang katrabaho nila or maliles na yung work nila kasi mas efficient or productive na yung mga robot sa tulong ng artificial intelligence.
One thing I can say is that we should not be afraid that robots will be replacing humans, because we will always need people. And it's, like I said, it's technologies that we use, and it is still people that make it happen. In other words, what will change is really the skill set that we will need. So, importante, the next presentation, education. What kinds of new skills will we need in the manufacturing sector? So one important thing that I mentioned in the challenges natin, di ba? Traditionally, dito sa Pilipinas, kailangan face-to-face pa tayo, di ba? But now, because of the pandemic, it has forced many of our companies to do work-from-home arrangements. And this is really strange for us, as a company, as a country, since very traditional pa rin yung work arrangements natin. But we will see that this is going to be more and more in the future. And there have been a lot of talks, particularly there is already, somehow some kind of automation that's happening. Even, let's say, yung mga tech help natin, di ba? Hindi na talaga yung sumasagot sa mga queries natin. Hindi na tao yun eh. AI na yun. But it still requires people to check whether the answers are correct or not. No? So I would like to say that we should not fear that we will not have work. But there will still be work around, except that it's going to be just a different skill set that we will be needing for our country to, that's why we have to keep pace with the new technology. So, yun ang magiging challenge natin. No? And then, of course, the digital divide that was mentioned by Dr. Torres and Dr. Pacheco, that our countryside really is still slow to development. So that's where we need to invest more.
And also, syempre, ma'am, di ba, parang ang mga policy makers, siguro talagang dapat mas nagiging katuwang natin pagdating dito sa ganitong usapin eh.
Yes, there are apart from the infrastructure, we also need to build a very healthy and open and flexible ecosystem of the ease of doing business. So that's still something that we still need to work on.
All right. Thank you so much, Academician Matias. Thank you, ma'am. And definitely not the least, we'll hear from Academician Raymond Girard on digital transformation in the education sector. Academician Tan is a professor of chemical engineering and the current vice chancellor for research and innovation at De La Salle University, Manila. He is well recognized in the field of process systems, engineering, and process integration. Let us now hear from Academician Tan.
Good morning. My name is Raymond Tan, and I'll speak briefly about digital transformation and digital ecosystems as they apply to the education sector. For the past 10 months, the COVID-19 pandemic has transformed everybody's mental picture of the educational process. And nowadays, if you say classroom to an educator or a student, this is what comes to mind. The pandemic has been an opportunity for us to field test different technologies and different techniques to see if distance education works just as well as traditional face-to-face education. Nevertheless, the pandemic has raised key questions for us to consider. And the three major ones that I want to bring up are as follows. Number one is, how much has the COVID-19 pandemic widened the digital divide in the Philippines? We knew it was there to begin with. The question really is, for this generation of Filipinos where the haves have been able to avail of education via the modern technology which enables content delivery, but the have-nots may have had to drop out of school and perhaps compromise lifetime prospects. So the questions would be the sub-questions. What and where are the infrastructure gaps that have led to adverse outcomes in different parts of the country? And what will the long-term repercussions be for this generation of Filipinos? Now, the second major key question I want to bring up is just how well are we navigating the mind-machine interface? This is really not just about the technology itself. I would argue that for the longest time, the content and the pedagogy for education has been optimized for delivery in the physical classroom, and the transformation has had to be done very rapidly for online delivery. And the question then is, how well do the old ways adapt to the electronic transmission route? And in that case, of course, how do we assure that we're delivering education at the desired quality? And to put things in clearer perspective, would the COVID-19 generation of future professionals, whether they're engineers or medical doctors, would we trust their skills as much as we would cohorts from the pre-COVID-19 era? So that's an important question to ask. And the third point is, what will the post-pandemic education landscape look like? Are we going to go back to the old ways once the pandemic is over, or is distance learning here to stay? Will it be the same for basic education, higher education, and professional training for adult learners? Will there be more borderless education where content crosses from the Philippines to outside the Philippines and back? These are all interesting questions where we will see the answers play out in the coming years. That concludes the brief points that I wanted to make. I'll be happy to continue the discussion during the open forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Academician Tan. Sabi nga nila talagang itong pandemic na to ay nagbukas ng kamalayan, lalo na sa karamihan pagdating sa digitalization, digital transformation. Ito mainit na usapin po kasi, Dr. Tan, ang pagdating sa education system sa ating bansa. Since nag-switch tayo sa makabagong teknolohiya, so yung face-to-face doon sa mga students ay isinantabi muna natin pansamantala. And of course, we should have the goal and we have set the standards. But speaking of digital transformation dito po sa ating bansa, gaano ba talaga tayo nakakasabay pagdating doon sa kung ikukumpara sa mga developing countries?
First of all, good morning, Jel. Good morning to my colleagues from the Academy and the Secretariat. And most of all, good morning to our audience. I think that's a very important issue. And it was almost 10 months ago when we were grappling with the issue of whether we should continue to pursue online learning. Or I actually remember there was some campaign by student groups to actually bring a halt to the educational process temporarily. But we have to remember back then, back in March, April 2020, we were expecting maybe to stop for just 2 or 3 months. We did not expect a pandemic which will stretch for 2 calendar years. So we are a bit lucky that the technology was already available, but of course we had to learn to use this almost by trial and error, learning on the spot, especially for those who are actually in the educational system. So it has been a steep learning curve. And the major problem I think that we have in the Philippines really is that digital divide that I mentioned, where if you have the access to the internet, then you have the access to continuing education. If you don't, then you probably would have lost 1 year of your youth where you could have learned new skills, and that would have been investment for your future life prospects. So that's the risk of widening that divide, because you were disadvantaged to begin with. Would you end up becoming disadvantaged for decades after COVID-19? I think that's a major technological and social issue that we need to look at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So do you have any forecast of what's next about the education system here in our country, since nakapasok na talaga tayo, or ito na, digital transformation na nga yung ating ginagalawan?
I think we're going to see distance learning become a more accepted part of the educational system. It's not going to be as dominant as it is now when we're forced to be at home, because obviously part of going to a university or going to a school is the socialization aspect. So that's what's missing now. So in the future, I would see, for example, for professional education, professionals working in industry who want to get a master's degree, they may be able to avail of graduate education without having to navigate traffic, rush hour traffic from the office to the university. So that thing is certainly, obviously, something which will be very promising in the future. And also being able to do it from long distance. You could be working in Cebu and then taking courses in an institution in Manila, or vice versa. So now we're going more borderless.
Yeah. So through online na lang talaga, di ba? Pwedeng-pwede na. All right. Thank you so much, Academician Han. And of course, thank you to our dear panelists for their presentation. So at this point, we will begin the open forum. So after watching all the presentation na pinakita po sa atin ng ating mga panelists, I think obviously the digital transformation has taken a big role in today's society. But is the role positive or negative? Ito na po, gusto kong marinig yung kanilang this. So, meron po tayong mga question. Pwede na mag-open po lahat ng ating panelists ng kanilang mga video. Yeah. So, we have Academician Torres, Academician Tabios, Academician Pacheco, Academician Culaba, and Academician Matias. Ayan. So, kompleto na po yung ating mga panelists. So, ito po, ang first question ay nanggaling kay Veronica Martinez. Ang question niya po ay para kay Academician Torres. Ang sabi niya, I agree with Mr. Balaguer. It's the national internet connectivity that is the root of our problem. So dito ba, sir, talaga sa bansa natin, hindi pa masusolusyonan ang internet connectivity, sir? Sir, nakamute po kayo.
Dr. Torres, nakamute po kayo.
Sir, can you please turn on your microphone?
Your mic is off.
Okay, I heard the question about the quality of the internet. Okay, of course, we read about attempts by the telecoms companies to provide broadband and to reach everywhere, di ba? Ang tanong, is it to their benefit to do that? I think it will be to their benefit if you think of kung may pera, di ba, pupunta kami doon, di ba? Kaya baguhin natin yung paradigm. Tayo ang magsasabi kailangan natin ang internet access sa lahat ng lublob ng Pilipinas at pwede rin kayong kumita pag ginawa natin yon, no? And that is where a grassroots approach to digital transformation might be appropriate, di ba? Yung digital divide, ang approach natin is supply to demand, di ba? Pwedeng balik ka rin eh. Palakihin natin yung demand para doon pupunta ang supply. Di ba? Sila ang nagdidictate ng supply of services ay yung demand. Ngayon, digital transformation is perhaps a strategy to change that paradigm. Di ba? If we create, for example, in a given city, there are more than 100 cities in our country. In big towns, there are a lot of towns in our city, in our country. If we adopt the strategy that we want to digitize, we want to use digital technologies, we want to transform our organizations, our institutions. Pag sinabi mo yon at alam mo na gagawin yon, palagay ko yung services pupunta doon, di ba? Palagay yun ang pagkukulang natin, na the demand creation is not attended to very much because we are dependent on centralized approach, no? So sharing economy, I think, is the so just to conclude my example, in a given city, if I can provide a digital platform in the city that can be used by education, that can be used by health, that can be used by transportation, and all of these important things for people in the community, then the PLDTs and the globes will go there because they will earn from the use of their services. And by the way, related to work, when we produce IT-enabled services, when we produce IT-enhanced goods, di ba? Then it will generate new jobs. And perhaps the number of jobs will not increase as fast, but the quality of the jobs will increase, and that will generate wealth to be able to go to restaurants and so on and so forth. But my basic point talaga is maybe reversing the paradigm on enabling digital transformation in our country by telling the industry that this is what is needed. And who is telling? It's the people themselves who will say that, not the politicians or us, the scientists. No? Parang tulungan natin sila na malaman nila kung ano yung kailangan nila. Tulungan natin sila kung paano nila magawa yung kailangan nila. Diba? City by city, town by town. Gawin natin yung services natin sa kanila na kailangan ma-enable ng mga gumagawa ng business sa internet. Yun ang approach ko, no? And later, maybe we can discuss a little more about how to bring that about. Because to me, that is the direction of digital transformation for our country. Di ba? Grassroots approach to developing the needs of the people all over the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Academician Torres. Marami pong salamat. So next question naman po from Florentino Quiñones. What are the existing Philippine government laws and related policies on digital transformation? May we know if some of this have significant impact in the society? So,
sino sasagot?
Anyone can answer? Or
unahan ko na para sundan ng iba.
yes, sir.
Ang may mga laws tayo, 'di ba, sa Philippines na 'di ba? Medyo matagal na yung mga laws, no? Dapat ma-update talaga siya para makuha itong concept ng digital transformation. Sa tingin ko, dahil sa bago yung concept na yon, hindi pa alam ng mga gumagawa ng rules, gumagawa ng laws, di ba, policies, and so on. But I think it is the root. It's really understanding how that can change our society that will make us respond by making those enabling policies and laws. And all others will follow. So yun yung concept ng digital transformation. Dapat saan tayo pupunta, alam natin kung saan tayo pupunta as a people, no, as a country. Ang ecosystems are really the means by which makakapunta tayo doon. Kasi kung paisa-isa tayong gagawa, di ba? Paubayan natin sa mga experts, hindi mangyayari yon. Kasi yung mga tao, di ba, gagawin lang nila yung nakikita nilang beneficial sa kanila. Hindi nila nakikita pa yung kung ano talaga yung importante para sa kanila. And to me, the concept of digital ecosystems will enable us to create that environment, no, na sila mismo, the stakeholders in an ecosystems are the people in that ecosystem. Dapat sila magsasabi, ito yung kailangan namin at gawin nyo para magawa nila yung gusto nilang kailangan. Yun ang approach na nakikita ko na kulang.
Okay po.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Jel, Alvin here. Yeah, can I just add specifically in the energy sector, no? As I have mentioned earlier, what really drives, yung digital transformation is really yung giving the consumer the power of choice, no? And that's exactly what recently, last year, already almost a year now, no? The Department of Energy issued a department circular on smart grid. It's a roadmap to 2040. But looking at the whole energy sector kasi, yung focus ng department circular niyan was really on the distribution utility. Kasi nabanggit mo kanina na yung energy sector, meron kanyan mga generators, meron kayong sa transmission na NGCP, tapos meron ka mga distributors, no? The distributed utility, no? So that is where that particular department circular provides, no, a framework, no. So and there's also proposed na itong microgrid law, which is being championed by Senator Gatchalian. Ito naman yung allows na to be able to provide the full access electricity provision to remote areas and capitalize on the digital technology to achieve that. So there are already, I think, sectors like in the case of energy who are responding to that. And I do agree with Academician Torres earlier na yung paradigm, it's the people, no, who will have to drive it. And I think in the case of energy, that is what is happening because what we experience is we have the highest electricity price here in the region, apart from Singapore. But that is really what's driving, that we need to find a way. And that is what Meralco already did, no, on their smart meters. So give them, allow the technology to get into the consumers, get them the data that they need so they can analyze and make their own decision. So they have more choice. Okay. Thank you, Jem.
Thank you, Academician Colaba. Thank you so much. And I think Academician Fabius would like to add more.
Very quickly lang kasi, if I look at digital transformation, it's always said that it is more about the people, which I think Academician Torres emphasized. Not really too much about digital technology or digitalization or digitation. In fact, in water resource, for example, we always look at the participatory public participation needed in making decisions because it's a multi-sectoral, multidimensional, and so on, multi-use, multi-source, etc. So you really have the ability to organize yourself and to connect And in fact, the word ecosystem is really like, to us, land, water, air, plus human settlements, flora, fauna. So people is a very central component in that ecosystem, Bale. And that's what we want to do. Digital ecosystem, how you really empower everyone, so to speak. Thank you.
Thank you po, Academician Tabios. So next question naman from Clarito Magsino. Is the introduction of the national ID a disruptive event, and if so, fall under the definition of digital transformation? So ito naman po yung national ID. I think, who could answer the question po?
Dr. Torres.
Dr. Torres.
Okay, well,
Okay.
it will bring up another type of ecosystem, di ba? Which is parang enabling the other ecosystems that are really important. National identification system is to be used by the people, di ba? To be able to get benefits to them, di ba? And the people who will provide the benefits
Yes.
are the ones who will, in a sense, also benefit because they know what they are providing is going to the right people. Diba? Yun yung isang purpose. Ako, to me the distribution economy or the economy that will be promoted if you have a national ID system is not just security or public order or regulations to limit people. I think we must look at it from another angle. It will be useful to people.
Yes. Okay.
It will be useful to people, and perhaps in the implementation of the concept of providing ID, doon papasok ulit yung sinasabi ko kanina na centralized. Di ba? And bakit ganon? Bakit hindi pwedeng i-decentralized? Palagay ko, the means to be able to do it in a decentralized way were not there, and maybe up to now they are not there. But already, it is the way to do it, to localize things that we used to do centrally. Of course, the problem is, can you trust what is being done at the local level? Well, this is where the ecosystem platform will sort of ensure that, you can do things locally and people will support you with financial support or even manpower support if it can be trusted that what you are asking for is what you need, and of course, we can afford it, something like that. So ang approach palagay ko ng digital transformation is, what is our digital transformation strategy? What will dictate that? Diba? And
Yes.
Dr. Tabios has mentioned it. It's people. People. And the internet allows people to access the goods and the services that they want. An ID is just a means. In a community, siguro ID is a formality, but magkakilala sila. Pero maraming nangyayari na kailangan i-centralize eh. Hindi maaaring decentralize lang. Dapat may system na there is an interaction between the national ecosystem and the local ecosystems. And that link, I think, is missing. That link is missing. It's got to be created and developed.
Okay. All right. Thank you once again, Academician Torres. So our next question is for Academician Tan. This is from Heidi Grace Mendoza. So her question is for the academe: which priority skill should we arm our students and professionals to be a creator, source, not just in the digital transformation. Are we prepared to provide that to our students and professionals?
Raymond yan, kay Raymond.
Good morning. I think, could you repeat that question? I lost audio for a while there.
Ang tanong po ni Ms. Heidi ay, which priority skills should we arm our students and professionals to be a creator, source, not just a user, and a player in the digital transformation? Are we prepared to provide that to our students and professionals?
Oh, I think the most important lesson for students is the adaptation to new technology. And I'm saying this because whether they're in secondary school or in university, during the course of their lives, technologies will change. And by 2050, they will still be around on this planet, and they'll be dealing with new technologies that maybe we would not even be imagining today. So I think the capability to be able to adjust quickly is an important life and career skill. Just if you think back to what telephones were like 10 or 20 years ago, you can get a sense of how things will change in the same time frame in the future. So I think adaptability and being able to use the technologies creatively, whether they work in the corporate sector or they set up their own businesses, I think it's essential that they can imagine how to use technologies so that it becomes economic goods and economic livelihood for them.
All right. Okay, thank you so much.
May I just suggest something? I was asked this question in previous Asian forum, diba? What are the skills needed and whether our educational system can provide those needs? What Dr. Tan was mentioning is not easy to transfer from the educational system to the students if the experience part is not there. Diba? Because the experiences that we are now getting from what is happening, because, for example, because of the pandemic, are just also being experienced by those who teach, diba? And my approach was to say, we must create that local ecosystem, which I am thinking for a city, where in fact education is delivered not only through the formal educational system, but through an interaction between the formal educational system and the community, diba? And to me, the skill that is needed to do that is the one who can, in fact, advocate and influence the community, not only IT separately from those who use IT, but at the same time. And to create an ecosystem that allows the formal educational system and the experiential educational system are seeing each other or are matching what will be needed by the future people who will. And so, in short, what I'm saying is we must create the enabler of such learning requirement, no? Hindi pwedeng traditional learning requirement, learning provision. It's got to be an innovative learning system where, as I mentioned, learning from both what is happening academically or in science, technology, and so on, principles, technology, and so on, but also what can be learned from what is happening, right? And that's got to be part of our challenge, to provide a digital ecosystem that enables that.
Thank you, Academician Tan. Thank you po, Academician Torres. So next question po from Shane Pe of the Philippines Events News TV. So, ang question niya, ito, nakalagay sa Facebook. How big companies like Starbucks, Novartis, and the rest harness digital technology for organizational change? What are the 4 main areas of digital transformation and its 3 main components? Thank you.
Siguro kay Ora yan.
Parang quiz, no?
Or,
Enumeration 4 and 3.
4 main areas daw, ma'am, ng digital transformation.
Well, in the point of view of business. So of course, it starts with the strategy, the strategic. No, dun sa I showed a slide about having to do with the strategy, where the vision is towards eventually coming out with an ecosystem that provides customers with what they want. So there are actually 4 ecosystems I mentioned, which is the customer, and then you have your process, and then the technologies that you use, and the people. So it's the customer, the process, the technology, as well as the people that make it happen. So those are the 4 main areas I think that would probably have. So you have to have a strategy. You have to change your key performance indicators. So what makes a business work? It's no longer just profit. It's no longer just profit driven, but it has to be also many of our customers are becoming more demanding, that it has to be more, some more or less gearing towards customized products or services. So you have to change your KPI. And then because I mentioned that once you change your business processes, that will involve a lot of information technology and other digital technologies, like even the how we process products from input materials to output materials, you have to have a different set of skill sets. So maybe some of our operators will now definitely have to understand how to use the interface between the computer and what is expected to be, what is the required skill to understand of pushing this button to ensure that this is the result. And then so the skill set is not only working on the interface, but we also have to think about sometimes understanding the process itself. So we may need more highly skilled personnel. And then, of course, the services side. So one of the things that is a little bit more mature that we already find in industry now is our supply chain and logistics companies, providing for logistics solutions. So, in fact, I was involved in a subtask really that was working on models that will ensure that we bring our food supply. So food supply from the provinces here in the metro. So very sophisticated. So I was very impressed about how the Supply Chain Management Association of the Philippines had managed to work with our ports, with our lalo na yung mga exports natin na hindi makapasok.
Yes, ma'am.
So, it has actually accelerated, no? It was already there. The infrastructure was already being built because of the demands for faster service, but it was really accelerated because of, the restrictions placed upon because of the pandemic. So, ano yung second part?
Alright.
Tatlo, nasagot ko na yung 4, ano? What was again the third one?
3 main components daw, ma'am.
Of what?
Basta yun lang, ma'am. Sabi niya, what are the 4 main areas of digital transformation and its 3 main components?
3 main components? Well, of course, number 1 is people. Like I said, number 2, technology. Okay? And number 3, people, technology, and vision. I would say. That's only my point of view. Vision. We have to have good leadership. There has to be a visionary that will orchestrate all of these. So our government as I saw somebody mentioned in the Q&A that there is a bill that is being submitted by Senator Kiko Benito, if I'm not, or Congressman Benito. Tama ba? No,
I
so,
got challenged. Senator Gatchalian.
A little bit. No?
so I said,
Yeah.
my answer to the three components, number one, is being people-centric. What do people need? How do we serve our people? Person, our customer, who is the stakeholder? Dapat central yan. Then what technologies do we need to serve what they want and what they need? And third is a very good visionary or a master plan that will orchestrate and make it happen. So that's my question.
All right.
That's my answer.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Could I just add a little bit? No? First, I'd like to say that ecosystems are not a standard prescription. Diba?
Correct.
It is something that is up to the stakeholders of that ecosystem. Diba? Perhaps what is not mentioned by Aura, which I think really complies with the thing. When you say technology kasi, maybe there are two aspects. The first aspect is that the technology that are used by people, such as computers, devices, di ba? And also used by people at the management level. But connectivity, I think, is the important missing thing. The platform already includes that connectivity. But connectivity plus the platform, di ba, allows you to provide all the possible needs that you could think of. And you here are the people who are in that ecosystem. Not somebody who says, kailangan nyo to. And let's look at the educational system, for example, and look at it from the perspective of a city. Di ba? What are the people requiring in the city? Connectivity is number one. Di ba? And kung wala yun, hindi mangyayari yung distance learning. Di ba?
Yes.
Of course, yung vision, that vision, our collective vision is we want to make distance learning better. But you cannot make that better unless you go down to the grassroots and say, this is how it will happen there. Di ba? So, enabling the people to do what they have to do. Now, the other thing that's also not mentioned is collaboration. When you say people, and when you say enterprises that are in an ecosystem, you must create that condition that they can work together. There is already an enabler for them to do so, the platform. Diba? But how they work together to achieve the vision that particular group has, diba, is something that they must work out. Diba? It's not dictated to them. It's not prescribed to them. There is no formula. In fact, maybe the person who asked the question looked that up in Google, and there are people who say, what are the 4 factors? But there are people who say there are 7 factors. Other people will say, di ba, iba-iba, kasi iba-iba ang perspective ng ecosystem. Hindi pare-pareho. Di ba? So in a developing country, pag nag-usap yung taga-US-based at saka Philippine-based, sabihin ng US-based, madaling gawin yan. Pero tayo, hindi madaling gawin. And just to give you some sort of insight, we as a developing country can probably learn more from the experience not in the US but in Europe. Alam mo kung bakit? In Europe, there are smaller countries, number one, like ours, smaller and also developing with the developed countries. But the other thing I think is, because of the Union, di ba? The European Union, they had to interact some more among countries, among businesses with each country with each other, di ba? That creates the conditions that sort of made them think ecosystem. Doon nag-umpisa yun eh. Di ba? Doon nag-umpisa yun. And my thinking is maybe looking at countries that are similar in conditions with ours is something we must also do. No? Because we cannot derive anything from developed countries. There is a book that I encountered a few years back which says, try to do things in Africa, because if you do it, you can do it in Africa, you can do it anywhere. Diba? But look at the other angle. If you can do it in the US, can you do it in the Philippines? So again, ano yan, paradigm shift.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
Academy Mission Pacheco.
Yes.
Do you want to say something, sir?
I took it as a cue. Advertisement.
Yeah.
Sa isang future episode ng ating series, I think my group or myself will launch an episode talking about an ecosystems involving all the buildings in Quezon City. We will make it very tangible. I'm already in talks with engineers and administrators, barangay people, or developers. In other words, different sectors. So I'm saying, we're talking about components and aspects, but in that future session, we shall concentrate on who are the stakeholders, like consumers, users, producers, developers, and in between them, perhaps enablers and regulators. If we can talk some more about the mutual interests of such sectors, I think we will reinforce what Academician Torres said. We will elaborate ano yung demand, ano yung proper demand, and then it will echo back to the other group of network and infrastructure people. In other words, at the other layer of this ecosystem. So we're moving at different layers. And we're talking today of the upper layer, the end users of such ecosystems. Pero my future session, I'm sure, na i-arrange ni Academician Torres talking about power supply and connectivity. Kasi assumed yun, dapat meron nun before we could even talk about transformation. But I bring back my point. In a future session, we'll talk about very concrete, tangible objects, buildings, but we will focus on the different stakeholders who care about buildings. And before you get surprised, we will invite also health people. Kasi imagine, kung meron tayong digital platform na naka-database lahat ng mga buildings, how much simpler would be our contact tracing? Just to tease your minds. That this is not going to stop in the physical aspects of engineering only, but such an ecosystem involving buildings or houses or structures or shelters in a city like Quezon City, take an example, could really be cross-cutting in education, even in health, of course, and so on. I don't have to mention security and crime prevention, right? But all aspects of society. And of course, the issue of privacy will come in again. Just like national ID of people, national ID of buildings will be a good, big issue to debate. But we have to discuss all these things to be able to deal with technology, how appropriate or inappropriate. So having said that, I think we're just scratching the surface of topics that can be discussed further in future episodes. So ako, nag-advertise na ako ng episode ng shelter and transportation.
Ayun, speaking of shelter pala, Academician Pacheco, is Airbnb an example of digital ecosystem for shelter?
I think it's a digital platform for a business. It's not yet, in my view, a whole or wide or complete ecosystem as we would define, but it has the beginnings. Just like transformation, pwede yung mag-evolve to a full ecosystem. But it's a good beginning of full ecosystem. Right now, it's an e-business model, I believe.
So can you imagine a digital ecosystem for shelter, let's say dito sa Quezon City, or pwede ba?
And whether your concern is which buildings or houses are safe, or your concern is which buildings or houses have paid their taxes, or your concern is which buildings are good to buy, pwedeng maraming end users who would care. And of course, the regulators, the government regulators would care as well. So yeah, I look at it as not only a very concrete example, as in physical example, but people on the ground, people in Quezon City are in discussions with me and some telco companies saying, paano ba gagawing e-business? And I told them, hindi lang e-business, gawin ninyong digital ecosystem and think of the human or the people elements as well, hindi lang yung technical elements. So I think as I said, in future discussions, lalabas yung very local, if I say, or Philippine examples where the actors are already there and they just need to get their acts together, literally.
Okay, thank you so much, Academician Pacheco. So our next question is for Academician Tabio. So the question is, how important is the digital ecosystem in water resource governance, considering the multidimensional, multi-sources, multi-purpose, multi-sectoral, and the multiplicity of institutions, organizations, and regulations governing water and its uses in the country?
I think the whole works of the digital ecosystem platform or framework really can cover all those issues. And as far as the water source, for example, to be able to identify which is the optimal water source for a city, or maybe to control the waters as far as floods is concerned, you need data, algorithms, and then you have the insights. Those three components that I've been mentioning in my, parang si Donald Trump, yung person, man, woman, camera, TV. Anyway, so that's where it comes in. And then when you talk about the sectors, who will use that? As far as yung irrigation ba, you need for domestic water supply, hydropower, for flood control. That's a multiple again use, and they can be conflicting or competing with each other. So how do you optimally allocate those water source like Angat? So many purposes. So again, you need like the proper forum for that. Not only your data, algorithms, the insights really will emanate from the people. Who are the users? Who are the operators? Who are the final consumers and so on. So again, if you think about now, when you talk about governance now, which then comes in yung mentioned by Academician Aura, where you need really leadership or vision and so on to be able to coordinate, to orchestrate all of this, because otherwise, who's going to be in charge? So that's, I think, part of the governance that we have been talking about before, that we need some kind of a apex body or a super body to organize, to orchestrate all these different, I would say, multi-dimensional, multi-purpose, multi-use, and etc. So I think the digital ecosystem platform, I guess, or I think, is will be able to cover all of these issues. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much po, Academician Tabios. I think wala na po tayong gaanong oras at ang dami pa pong question talaga na gusto natin i-entertain sa pagkakataong ito. Pero humingi po kami ng pasensya dun sa ating mga participants na nag-send naglalamang questions. Hindi na po kasi natin ma-entertain lahat, but pwede pong masagot yung mga questions ninyo ng ating mga speakers right after the webinar na nag-conduct natin today. I think at this point in time, hingan ko na lang po ng final message ng ating mga panelists. Simulan po natin from Academician Raymond Tan.
Hey, good morning. I think human resource building in a country always begins with education. And we have to keep in mind that even when times were normal, it was not being shall we say, the educational system was not as equitably distributed as we would like. We have very good schools and universities in the wealthier parts of the country, and yet in the far-flung regions, the kids and the students are being left behind. And this has been widened. This gap has been widened because of the lack of access to the internet infrastructure. So that is a major challenge. It's going to cause a larger social divide unless it's properly managed. And I think that's something to be discussed in a future webinar of NAST. Thank you.
Thank you, Academician Dan. So let us hear from Academician Matias. Nan.
On my part, I think the big companies, especially multinational companies, have already, started in their investments in terms of their smart infrastructure. But I think the greater challenge really is scaling it down to our small and medium-sized business enterprises. And there has, as Raymond mentioned, while skill set what is very important, it is more so, with our the gap between the growth mindset and readiness of our SMEs in being part of this digital ecosystem. So in the future webinars that will be set, particularly in the aspect of manufacturing, I think this is one sector that needs to be looked into and to find ways of mitigating that increasing gap between the haves and have-nots. But more and more, I would focus really on the people. Just as the study that was I mentioned in the Digital Operations Study survey, that people is still central. So we must not be afraid about being replaced by robots or artificial intelligence. It's just differentiating the skills that we will need to gain to move forward that kind of new ecosystem.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And let us hear his final message, Academician Alvin Culaba. Sir, please turn on your mic, sir.
Right, sorry. Okay, thank you, Jel. Again, the Department of Energy has already put in place the Smart Grid framework and roadmap to 2040. So many companies has really, found, or find the value of digital, but, reality has proved it difficult. So it's still a lot of work, but I think the energy sector is already moving towards digital transformation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now let us hear his message from Academician Benito Pacheco.
Thank you again to everyone. There will be in future episodes much discussion about digital ecosystems revolving about transportation. And if I repeat, revolving about very physical structures like buildings, there will be, I believe, an example forthcoming in a soon to come episode, because people in a city like Quezon City are already in the works or working on building a digital database of all structures in the city. But of course, more than the physical database, it is the group of stakeholders that will be, as mentioned by all speakers, more consequential, like all the users or occupants or all the producers or developers and all the regulators in between. They should agree on what purposes mutually beneficial would such a citywide database or system, if we say, would be for. And my personal take is, before we know it, we will find how widely useful it's going to become or evolve into. Like, as I said, health issues will start to be convenient or easy to overlay on such, because the physical setting is always a factor or a risk factor even in health. And there are more applications, of course. So, sundan sa susunod na kabanata as far as shelter transportation are concerned. Thank you.
All right, very well said. Thank you so much, Academician Pacheco. And now let us hear from Academician Guillermo Tables.
Thank you very much, Jill, and to our audience today. So I think I still want to go back to the perspective that the water is really a complex, large scale, again, so uncertain and so dynamic, in the sense that if you talk about water, it sits on land. And then you talk about land use change, you talk about urbanization, you talk about population growth, the demand will be changing, and then we talk about the upper part, the air that really brings your rain to the watersheds, etc. Again, you have climate change, you have even long-term or even short-term atmospheric or weather changes. All of this, when you talk about digital ecosystem, how you will then be able to serve the people, how you bring water to the people, how do you control water that will not injure people, so to speak, or your damaged properties. You need, in fact, we have these buzzwords I mentioned earlier. You could no longer just use human intelligence to cover all of this and do analysis given the data, big data, to big scale computations for the uncertainty. So you need like helicopter passing through. So you need really large scale type of computing and so on. And then how to involve the people, because they will be the end users, they will be the end, will be at the lower end to be affected by floods, for example. How you make sure that they will thrive. And again, I mentioned, in fact, even the flora and fauna, which really supports your food, etc. So again, I go back to the digital ecosystem, which is all elements of being able to aid us in trying to conserve, control our waters and so on, to bring to the people and be beneficial. We need this digital ecosystem platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Academician Tayos. And finally, let us hear his final message, Academician William Torres.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank the members of the panel. I believe that we have learned a lot from what we have shared with each other. And I hope that the audience and the participants that are listening to us will embrace these ideas as we proceed to maybe the articulation of how these ideas can be translated into action, diba? But for now, let me say two things. The first one is, I think we need to ask the question, what is our digital transformation strategy for our country? I think that question has to be asked, diba? Because it is that vision that will cascade down to ecosystems that are to be formed or that are also to be transformed, so that all of us will move towards that vision. As I mentioned at the beginning, more money is being put into this, diba? On a global basis. And so, thinking nationally, maybe we should measure how much money did we invest in our journey towards digital Philippines, diba? That transformation from where we are now to digital. Now, the second thing that I wanted to share is, I think the ideas that we have shared today allows us to address really complex problems. Complex, no? Hindi madali, di ba? Hindi ma-solve ng isang expert like Dr. Pacheco, who is an expert on shelter and transportation, and Dr. Tabios, who is an expert on water and other energy and education and manufacturing. My message is really, we must look at it from the perspective of ano bang alam natin doon, paano ba datin baguhin, at isama natin yung mga tao na stakeholders na tinatawag. Hindi lang gobyerno ang stakeholder, hindi lang businesses, mga tao talaga, di ba? ang stakeholders. So, pagsama-samahin natin itong mga stakeholders para they can participate in meeting the challenge of these complex problems that we are facing. And to me, the tools that are provided by the digital ecosystems approach, I think are very useful. But more useful is for us to come together and say, ito yung gusto nating mangyari in our country at siguro kanya-kanya tayo maghanap ng kung anong ecosystem makakatulong tayo para umiral yung digital transformation na mangyari sa atin. And to me that if you can do that per city and per big town in our country and escalate that, no, parang a few towns muna or a few cities muna, but other cities will learn from what they are doing. And then I think by dreaming that at some point in the near future, many cities are already doing it, like what Quezon City is trying to lead us to do. And that will move us. And this is, I think, an up and down thing. It's an evolution, no? It's not a pupunta ako doon. Di ba? Hindi, pag ganun-ganun kayo. Kasi hindi pwedeng diretso. Marami kang titingnan kung saan dapat iba yung gagawin mo kasi mukhang hindi nakakatulong. So to me, that is dapat mayroon national strategy tayo, digital transformation strategy, at mayroon tayong strategy para umiral ito sa mga towns and cities in our country. Sa tingin ko, pag ginawa natin yon, ma-accelerate natin yung process na yun.
Maraming salamat po, Academician William Torres. Maraming salamat po sa lahat ng ating panelists na nakasama natin today. Academician William Torres, thank you so much, sir. Academician Benito M. Pacheco, thank you so much. Academician Guillermo Q. Tabios III, maraming salamat, sir. Academician Alvin B. Colaba, thank you so much, Academician Colaban and Academician Aura M. Matias. Thank you so much, ma'am. And of course, thank you, Academician Raymond Gerard Artan.
Thank you so much, Jill, for hosting
All right.
us.
Thank you very much, Jill, for being host to this very important forum.
Thank you, Jill.
It is my pleasure, sir, and I'm really honored na nakasama po ako sa pagkakataong ito. And of course, magpapasalamat din po tayo sa lahat ng ating mga participants na nag-join sa atin today. Thank you so much po for all the questions and for the participation. Today is really such a momentous event. I hope po na lahat tayo ay natuto doon sa mga naibahagi sa atin ng mga speakers na nakasama natin today. So sabi nga natin, digital transformation and digital ecosystem is more than just a new word sa supply chain and logistics. We have learned today, digital ecosystem is very dynamic pagdating sa interconnected network na that facilitates reliable communication among customers and industry partners. So, napakalawak po ng pakahulugan pagdating dito sa usapin na ito, na alam din natin na magkakaroon ng malaking potensyal na mag-aalaw din sa mga businesses to leverage new and legacy technologies. At sabi nga natin, itong pandemic na dala po ng COVID-19 ay nagbukas o nagtaas din ng kamalayan sa bawat isa tungkol sa digital transformation. Sabi natin, paglipas ng panahon, mas nagiging mabilis na yung takbo ng panahon, di ba? Kailangan sumabay tayo sa takbo ng teknolohiya. Ang ating bansa dapat hindi rin napapahuli pagdating kung ikukumpara doon sa mga developing countries, ika nga. Ang ating bansa ay tunay na may pagmamalaki natin dahil andyan po yung mga eksperto na walang tigil, walang humpay sa ginagawa nilang pagsasaliksik at pag-aaral para sa ikauunlad ng ating bansa. Once again, abangan po ninyo ang mga susunod na episode ng Engineering Science and Technology Division webinar series ng National Academy of Science and Technology Buhay Philippines. And on behalf of Nast Philippines, thank you all for joining us today. And it has been my pleasure to serve as the host of this activity. I wish you all a pleasant day. And please kindly answer our short survey before leaving the meeting room. So lahat po ng ating participants who accomplished the evaluation form are entitled to receive a certificate of participation. And huwag niyo po kalimutan din, sundan ang mga official social media accounts ng NAST Philippines, ang NAST official Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts na naka-flash po sa inyong mga. Again, this has been your host, Jel Miranda from DOS TV. Thank you, everyone, and have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.